This is Full Episode Friday, which you know what that means. The entirety of Sarah Bogdanovich's interview is released today, so if you haven't seen part 1 or part 2, you are in luck. This is the full, uninterrupted episode, so enjoy, and be sure to tune in on this coming Monday for the release of part 1 of our interview with Amber Worth. Welcome back to Embracing New Life, and once again today we have in this episode one of our colleagues that works here at New Life Resources. Her name is Sarah Bogdanovich. She'll share a little bit more about herself, but we are glad that you could join us today on this podcast and share with us some of your background and anything else that you want to share with us.
Hey, yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Great, good to have you, Sarah. Maybe you could start, just introduce yourself, just a little bit about who you are, where you're coming from.
Yes, so I graduated with my master's in mental health counseling from Trinity International University in Deerfield, Illinois, which I believe we are both alma maters of, or that's both of our alma mater. And so that was back in 2021, so I've been working here with New Life ever since. I started out doing my internship and practicum at James Place, where you were both my supervisors way back then.
Back in the day.
Yep.
2020, so I think we started right in the midst of COVID.
Yes, that was a challenging
It was
time.
very much so. Yeah, so I am married. I live in West Dallas. I've been married since 2022. Just a little bit about my hobbies. I like to read, just spend time with people, doing anything, going outside, hiking. My husband and I are both really much so into camping, so that has been a fun thing we like to do in the summer. And then with counseling, I really focus with therapy, with just doing a collaborative process and focusing on the therapeutic relationship. I believe we are wounded in relationships, and it's in relationships that we find healing and growth and change, and so that's a huge part of how I do therapy.
So what do you mean by collaborative?
Collaborative, yes. Working together, with the counselor, with the client, coming together, working on putting together goals and really making it a process that the client can benefit from. So usually when I first start out, I do a typical intake session, and I really like to get the full history of the client, what they've been through in their past, and also currently what they're going through. So that usually takes a session or two, and then after that, I like to do what's called the magic question, which you're both familiar with, and asking, if you were to get a magic pill before you go to sleep, and you take that, and during the night, a miracle happens, and you wake up the next morning, and everything is perfect, just the way you would hope for it, wish for it, dream for it to be. What would you see or feel? What would I see? And so that allows the client to start to dream a little bit about what they're hoping for, and so then I try to take what they say in that question, and then what they've shared in the first session, and then putting together, okay, where do I see some of their goals that they might say either explicitly or maybe a little bit more implicitly, and then I try to word that in a way that is clinically relevant but also personally relevant to the client, and then putting that together, and then I share my feedback back with them about what the goals that I have, and then a lot of times they're like, yeah, that's spot on, that's great, and I also ask if there's anything they'd want to add or change or take away, and then I also try to share with them as well that because this is a collaborative process, if there's ever a time or something that they either feel uncomfortable with or not willing to go towards, or just aren't generally liking, to talk to me, to bring that up. I won't be offended at all, and because that's, it's a relationship. I want this to be a healthy relationship, that they can benefit, and also that they feel comfortable to assert themselves.
For sure. Yeah, so for each individual client, they have a lot of autonomy in how they're treatment plan's going to look and the goals that they have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I know that's one of the myths that we covered back in the previous episode, where people just feel like it's going to be a one size fits all, and I'm going to be kind of stuck in this whatever. However you do therapy, that's what's going to happen. It's really more so tailored to their unique needs and what's going on in their life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good.
And then do you monitor that plan? Does it change while you're working with them sometimes?
Yeah, so I think when we talk, like each week, I kind of bring it up, like what's gone well, what hasn't gone well, what are some things that they are wanting to talk about or process through in a given session. And then always in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, where does this relate to the treatment goals? And that's where sometimes some of the treatment goals, they're specific but also a little bit broad, where they can encapsulate different life issues that just pop up unexpectedly, but going back to, okay, what is their deeper goal? What are they wanting? And so subconsciously I'm doing that a lot. Or not subconsciously, consciously, but, more quietly, I would rather say. And then if we're ever stuck, sometimes we might revisit, okay, well, let's go back to your goals. And then I've had clients, especially clients that I've seen several years, we like to, try to go back and go back to those goals and see, oh, how have they grown in a lot of these ways? And then are there any of these goals that they are wanting to focus in more or change in any ways? So.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Now, some writers are describing this as the anxious generation, or just recognizing that anxiety is reported at very high levels. Is that what you see in your work?
Yes, there's a lot of anxiety. And that was something that I didn't really expect coming into this field to really not encounter, but really gravitate towards in the work that I do, especially when it comes to how we experience anxiety in the body. Because I think when people just think about anxiety as anxious thoughts, that can either bring up a lot of shame of, oh, I'm just experiencing anxiety, or I'm feeling anxiety. That means that, in terms of like Christian words too, be anxious for nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, if I'm feeling anxious, am I not being a good Christian? And really trying to differentiate as well anxiety as cognition, thoughts, the anxious spiral, what ifs, cognitive distortions, all or nothing thinking, black or white thinking, which we can manage more, and then also anxiety just as a physical bodily feeling. And, when we think about even fights between two people, there reaches a level of escalation that nothing is productive. And I think that's the same way in terms of our own bodies, that if we are beyond a level of escalation in our bodies, nothing is productive. So I know with a lot of my clients, when they're so physically escalated and they're like, I'm trying to combat a lot of these lies that come in and these anxieties and anxious thoughts, but yet I'm not able to, I don't seem to get much traction, but then way later on I can recognize, oh yeah, of course, that was a distortion, or, that was silly. And I say, well, yeah, of course, if you're so escalated, reason's not going to exist, logic's not going to exist, it's all going to fly on by. And so being able to physically calm down and focus on grounding skills and where we are in our body and connecting with that. And then knowing that just because we physically feel anxious, that doesn't mean we are thinking a lot of anxious thoughts either. Sometimes we just physically feel anxious for no reason at all. And when we try to subscribe meaning to it, I think that can tend to further and increase anxiety as well. So that's something that I have seen a lot with the people that I see, the clients that I see, especially in teens.
So what would some examples be of physical anxiety?
Yeah. So increased heart rate, thinking that something small just feels so strong, feeling paralyzed, feeling like so anxious that they can't do anything, or a lot of just ruminating, and focusing so much on like, it can either be focusing so much on what's going on in their mind, or just, oh my goodness, I'm feeling like this shakiness. I've had clients as well that have incredible somatic symptoms where they've been to the hospital multiple times, or anxiety induced vomiting, and then the more that we focus on, okay, when you're feeling that way, focus on these grounding skills and
what is a grounding skill?
yeah, right. It's getting outside of our own mind, I would say, in being grounded with the present. And so focusing on our reality, what is here, what's currently present. So that could be like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise, 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you smell, 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, 1 thing you taste. And so that can, when someone is either so consumed by their thoughts, or like experiencing a panic attack. I've found that exercise can help get either out of their mind, or recognize that, oh, it's not that scary right here in this moment. I'm not experiencing physical danger in this moment. Another one is a body scan. So starting like from the ground up and just noticing different body sensations or tension that you're feeling in your body, and then slowly working your way on up. And I like to do all of my grounding skills with my clients in session, so we might spend a session doing all of these, because sometimes they reported, I know, like a past therapist has just told me to do all this, and I haven't, it hasn't worked for me. And then I've asked them, well, have they practiced that with you? A lot of times, no, they haven't. And so I like to practice those things with my clients. And when I do the body scan, they're like, wow, I feel so relaxed. I just like...
You're raising a really important issue here, is that these skills do take practice.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
the more we practice, the more effective they become for us.
100%. Like if you just do it once, I have, especially a lot of my teens are like, well, it didn't work. And it's like, but continued, repeated practice is where you're going to find.
Yeah, I like to remind people that it's like let's say you picked up basketball for the first time and you decide to go shoot the ball once or twice or 10 times, and then you wait until you get to the game. And how well do you think you're going to do if you've only shot the ball 10 times and now you're playing in the game? Not going to be very good, because it takes a lot of muscle memory to be able, in a high stress environment, to be able to respond how you properly, with proper fundamentals, as they would say, need to respond. And the same is true when your anxiety, when it's elevated and you're at a point where you just need to calm yourself and ground yourself. That's not the time you're trying to figure out how to do this skill, because it's not going to work.
Absolutely not.
So we can practice in the non-crisis times.
Exactly.
And it's more available then when the need arises.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And I think also, too, the body scan, it can also help, individuals recognize when they start to feel anxiety when it's small, because a lot of times they're not recognizing it when it's small, and then all of a sudden they're feeling incredibly anxious, a panic attack, and not able to do anything. And so sometimes a scan like that is, when you catch it when it's small, well, then it's a lot more manageable to deal with.
It sure is.
How would you explain to somebody, because anxiety is a normal phenomenon that happens in life.
Absolutely.
Everybody experiences anxiety. For somebody who's like, well, do I experience normal anxiety, or is my anxiety at a level that I need to get help for it? How would they know when they've crossed over the threshold of like, I might need to seek some help for this?
Well, I think it's beneficial to know that anxiety is not always a bad thing. I remember we've talked in the past that, anxiety can be beneficial.
For sure.
realize that you have something due tomorrow, like a paper or an exam or presentation, and you haven't worked on it. Or a podcast. And you're prepped for it. It's good to feel a little anxious to get into gear. Honestly, I got through most of my college and masters by banking on that anxiety in the last couple days before something is due. So I think when it gets to the point of paralysis and not like physically you absolutely can't, but you feel like, okay, I'm finding myself procrastinating to an unhealthy level. I feel like I'm not able to
disruptive.
Yeah, absolutely. When it's disruptive, when it's impacting your relationships, when you find yourself reacting more in bigger ways versus just responding. A lot of that can be anxiety related. So I would say those are a couple of key.
Well, also, like if somebody standing back from a scenario and looking at it would say like, oh, I would have liked to have done that, or would have normally been active in that, but found myself avoiding or not engaging.
Yeah,
that'd be another good sign.
Absolutely. And I think also a lot of times it becomes so normal for someone to experience anxiety, so it becomes their new normal. So it sometimes people are very high functioning anxiety, and so they don't always recognize that, oh, this isn't normal because it gives me a lot of good results and I'm able to be highly successful, highly accomplished, and then unfortunately sometimes you don't realize it until it's too late and your body's physically breaking down.
Or your relationships have broken down.
Absolutely.
But that idea that in moderate levels, anxiety can sometimes be helpful.
Yeah.
In low levels, yes, it often is helpful. But somewhere on that continuum, it starts to interfere.
Yeah.
And now it's disrupting, and then you go all the ways you're describing, even paralysis. Anxiety can interfere with sleep.
Yeah.
It can interfere with eating.
Yeah.
When someone shares with you that they're struggling with anxiety, what type of things do you tend to take a look at to try to understand their experience?
I like to understand is this more situational? Is this more of a long-standing thing that they have been struggling? So I like to go into how long do you feel like you've been struggling with anxiety? What are some factors that tend to make your anxiety worse? What are some instances, maybe if there's a clear period of time where you're like, yes, this is when I started to really notice anxiety in my life. Sometimes it could be from like a past trauma or family systems, especially with teens. Unfortunately, I have seen where a lot of teens are experiencing anxiety and they tend to internalize that I'm the problem or I'm the issue when we go and we look at, well, it's a very actually normal response to some very abnormal situations given family. If it's more systemic, if there's chaos in the home. So I really try to take a look at all those factors, also ask them what are some things that you've done that have gone well when trying to deal with anxiety, things that have helped. And then also if it tends to be just a continual thing where it's, the content can change, but the process is still the same. Well, the more you try to deal with the content of it, it's not going to help. And so going into, the process of how we deal with anxiety. And so...
Let's talk a little bit more about that distinction. So the content, what would content be?
Content could be, situational things that happen. I am anxious about this test or this relationship or this internal thing that I don't necessarily know if people are thinking about me in these ways, but this is how I'm feeling, and so I'm going to focus so much on that person or that perceived, issue versus,
And so what's the process?
The process is, I'm going to guess this has to more do with physically feeling anxious. And instead of recognizing, oh, I'm just physically feeling anxious and I can just deal with it as physical bodily symptom, I want to subscribe meaning to it so that it makes sense to me. And then because you're not dealing with the root of, you're just physically dealing with anxiety and the process of it, whether it's higher escalation or if there are maybe relational attachment in general. And then that's the process of, okay, then let's, deal with, de-escalating and maybe, some of shame messages that might come up or lies or continual things that they might tell themselves that are affecting different situations. So I guess that's more the process of how do I handle anxiety when I experience it.
So we can see that sometimes people will develop understanding of the content or the issue, and they're still anxious.
Absolutely.
That we're needing to deal with the body's response. And many times people have that bodily anxiety reaction, and then they fill in the blanks and come up with an explanation. It may not even be relevant.
And
but
then
it
it
works
just
in the
increases
moment.
anxiety
And
so
then the
much
anxiety
more
increases.
when you try to subscribe meaning to it.
So recognizing being made as a whole, our thinking, our feeling, our bodily reactions, they're so intertwined that we many times need to address the body to calm or comfort the mind, the heart, and the soul.
Absolutely. And so when people come to me, I don't even really focus more on the content of things until we go into how do we de-escalate, how do we deal with the body, because like I said, when you're so escalated, reason, logic, it's not going to exist.
Available.
It's not going to land at all. And so then, and then also realizing that we hold so much in our body. And so then doing like tense and release exercises or feeling, a lot of times with anxiety, then it can feel like I'm feeling helpless or out of control. And so breath work is a huge part of what I do as well to help focus on the process on the body. Because when it feels like you can't control much, at least you can control your breathing.
Yes.
And I found that the best way to affect our heart rate is through our breathing. You want to increase your heart rate, you start, you gotta do that. And then if you want to decrease your heart rate, So even at the end of sessions, when I can tell we're dealing with something a little bit more physically anxious, I try to end our sessions even with just a few breaths in and breaths out.
Slowing the body down.
Yes.
Yeah.
The more slow you are, the more mindful choices you can make.
So there's a passage in the scriptures, be still and know that I am God. This idea of being still, it just doesn't go with anxiety.
Or in our modern world.
It doesn't fit our modern lifestyle.
No, not at all.
No.
And I think too, when people think about being still, it's okay, well, I don't know where my mind's gonna go, and then sometimes that can be shame of my mind is just racing and I can't deal with that, and so I must be doing something wrong. But when we do something, even like a body scan, I've even had clients that say, wow, I'm never still that long. And because you're focusing your mind on certain things too. And even when it says in scripture, meditate on the things of God. And and it's not just blank mind, because that's just not, it's just not realistic.
I think one of the things that you are giving clients in those moments is a sense of agency, right? Because, like you said, some people become so accustomed to lots of things in life, but anxiety in particular, when they're dealing with that they feel driven like a leaf by the wind, and they don't realize that, no, I actually can take control of this moment, and have an impact on my experience, and so it's great that you empower them to do that.
That's been really exciting, is helping them find their agency. And I remember even way back in my master's days is, we work ourselves out of a job. And so, helping them do that, even journaling is such a great way of like a physical release and helping them practice, especially even like adolescents and teens, because they don't know a lot of times, their parents don't even know, unfortunately. And so just helping build those skills, build that agency, because I think the more we feel like we can control the things that we are responsible for,
Yes.
the more sense of, okay, I have hope, things can get better.
Yeah.
And so part of what we also do with treating anxiety is looking at our expectations. If I expect the unreasonable from myself and I constantly fail, that does feel kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But if I can have a realistic expectation. So a lot of times we're discussing those things in our work as well.
Yeah, realistic expectations, and it's not about being perfect, and that sometimes goes into the all or nothing thinking, black and white.
Yep.
And every time someone comes in and be like, I like black and white, I love showing them the difference between a black and white image and a grayscale image, and I'm like, well, which one's clearer actually? The grayscale image is more clear. And so that can help in realizing, okay, it's not about just being anxious or not anxious. Again, that's not realistic.
Yeah.
Because we all experience anxiety. But being like, okay, well, am I maybe a little bit less anxious? Can I still calm myself down in the midst of anxiety? Can I slow things down and choose to respond more? And that can have it help seeing things as more of a continuum versus just all or nothing.
I'll sometimes refer to the light spectrum, where what's between black and white is the full color spectrum.
Yeah.
And is my world just black, white, or is it full of color?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great analogy. Or not analogy, but illustration.
Yeah.
When you're working with teens in particular, how do you interface with the parents, the rest of the family?
It's different for every family. There are some family members and parents that are very much so, I completely trust, what's happening in session. I want to provide that safe space for my child, and so a little bit hands off, but then if there's something that, of course is a safety issue, or if I'm, talking with my client, I'm like, I really think this is more of a systemic thing or something that mom and dad can help with. Then talking with parents and, not breaking confidentially, like your child said X, Y, and Z, but being like, these are things that we're working towards. These can be helpful to, because a lot of times too, parents can be very overreactive as well, because what they've experienced
Parents
growing
are
up,
also human.
they're also human, absolutely.
Yes, we are.
Which is another thing, having with a lot of teens and then eventually, adults, it's building empathy for self. With a lot of teens, a lot of adults, young adults, have so much empathy for their parents, and I've noticed that it's harder for them to have empathy for themselves. Of like, to say that you needed something different is not to say parents were all bad.
Right, right.
Not at all.
Right.
It's seeing everything in its fullness. Which I've noticed that has been very difficult for some of my clients. And we can hold the tension of both. Empathy for other, empathy for self. And so then with parents sometimes then too, like, I've had a couple times when I've had really hard conversations with parents. It's like, this is a systemic issue and you're trying to put this all on your child, that your child is the issue, when, well, if there's chaos happening in the home, this is a very normal response for your child. They aren't going to want to maybe branch out and be productive, active members of society and have confidence if they're feeling scared and uncertain in their home. Or if they're feeling like this is all being pinned on them, that's just going to further their own mindset that, they're the problem, they're helpless in fixing it, and they're hopeless in that because they're trying to be responsible for something that's really outside of their control. And so having some of those hard conversations with parents, it's uncomfortable, but I've actually had parents a lot of times be receptive, even in the moment, and sometimes, unfortunately, they don't always implement what we're suggesting. But like when I once was talking to a parent, I was like, yeah, there's a lot of chaos in the home, it seems like. And they're like, yeah, there is a lot of chaos in the home.
Because that statement is not a judgment, that's a description.
It's
Exactly.
a description, absolutely.
And when they can receive it as a description, now we can take a look, what are our options? Yeah.
Yeah, I love what you said with describing versus judging. That's a huge part. And I think even with anxiety too, when we judge, and I like to go and like paint, I will typically look out my window and I will describe what I see, and then I'll just cast judgments on I see, just in terms of like the weather or whatnot, and to show the difference. And when I'm even just describing, like I even feel like calmer and more connected when I'm just describing.
Yes.
Because judgments, it tends to disconnect you from yourself, but also increase your emotions, which I think that can be it's a protective strategy of like, oh, this is so uncomfortable, I don't want to connect with myself. But when you describe, yes, you are connecting with yourself more, but you're also de-escalating your emotions more too.
Well, it leads to understanding, you know.
Absolutely.
It's just like when you stop and you don't judge, you observe and you describe, it starts to make sense of the narrative and story you find yourself in, of why did I respond the way I did, or why did my kid respond the way that I did. Oh, when I step back and actually look at it, it makes sense. But, you know, when you're judging, everything becomes critical. You shouldn't have done that. You should be like this. Like, it just is unhelpful. And it just totally freezes up understanding, you know. And so when you can just learn to observe, man, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, we don't do it naturally, that's for sure. But I'm great at judging.
It's a gift.
Right?
I'm an Olympian.
Yes.
But yeah, very true. And then it's so much harder to change a characteristic versus changing a behavior or action. That can be so much more manageable. Like, we can make actual changes to an action, but if you just be like, well, I'm just stupid, or I'm just like the worst and I'm awful, well,
There's
it's
not
like,
much remedy for that.
No, not really. Not really. And that doesn't help. That just kind of perpetuates
For sure.
bad actions. And so even with anxiety, like, I shouldn't be anxious. Well, and I like to say, don't be mad at your anxiety. Like, it's okay. Like, don't be mad at yourself. And I think that tends to be more fearful of anxiety, of, oh no, I'm feeling anxious, and catastrophizing what that all might mean. But yeah, when you step back and describe it, it becomes a lot less scary.
And for us in our role, when we hear someone talk about, I started to feel the anxiety, then I did a breathing exercise, or then I checked my expectation, whatever that they might have done. And then I was able to relax. That's really rewarding. To see that person experience a sense of self-regulation. I'm not out of control. Maybe not always comfortable, but I'm not out of control.
Yes. And making that distinction with uncomfortability. There's no bad emotions, but just it's uncomfortable. It's not scary, it's uncomfortable.
And that uncomfortable isn't dangerous.
Yeah.
No.
It is uncomfortable, but it's not dangerous. And that is a big distinction as well.
Yeah, and uncomfortability can be so helpful in growing.
Exactly.
Yes.
And change and processing through and with that and tying it back to anxiety, I clients too that tend to, they say that being people pleasers and then wanting to manage their anxiety by taking away discomfort from other people and reframing like uncomfortability is not bad.
Yeah.
That can be very beneficial, and knowing like, okay, also helping yourself dealing with that uncomfortability of letting other people experience their emotions too.
Yeah, and oftentimes uncomfortability is a prerequisite for growth. I mean,
Absolutely.
if you think about exercising or working out, you're going to have to be uncomfortable if you want to improve or get better at something, That's just true for everything in life.
Yeah, I once heard a really great way to frame things of, when you're starting to work out, you're going to naturally feel weak. When you're starting to save money and try to increase your financial prosperity, you're going to feel a little bit more poor. If you're learning something new, you're going to feel, a little bit more stupid or whatnot, which in reframing that's like, it's not a bad thing and that's not who you are. It's more of like, really, it's just uncomfortable, like you said.
Yeah. So, tolerance, being able to be okay with mild uncomfortableness, is part of being a person.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when that uncomfortableness is interfering, that's when we want to take actions to find, how do I decrease that uncomfortableness so that it's not interfering, that I have the freedom to live as is good to live.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have to make things.
As a Christian mental health professional, what difference does identifying yourself as Christian make to you in the work you do?
Yeah, well, a huge part is I'm a Christian, and so automatically, that's going to be a part of who I am as a therapist. As we enter this role fully as being human and fully as being ourselves, because therapy is so much based on the relationship aspect. I'm never dismissing that part of myself. It's fully a part of who I am as a therapist, as I'm relating to my clients. And so, part of my intake process is finding out, okay, where are they, in terms of their own faith journey. A lot of times I see clients that aren't Christian, especially being teens. A lot of teens are, or young adults, a lot of times they are here because their parents want them here, or their parents have been here in the past, like if they're adults now, and so that's how they found us, even if they might not themselves be Christian, or they're finding out their own journey in that. So I just like to meet everyone right where they're at, kind of like Paul, what he said, we're gonna be be who, what the other is needing, but also still being very much so having integrity to who I am. Like, I'm not going to change who I am, but recognizing that in my role, like, I can meet them right where they're at, no matter what, and that doesn't have to take away from me at all either, or my faith. And even if we never talk about Christianity or God, like oftentimes, like, I'll still be praying in my own mind, and especially if I'm stuck, sometimes I'll be like, oh Lord, where should we go with this? And there have been times, even actually a client recently brought up, because we were talking about that as well, and she's like, yeah, there's been times when I've been praying about an answer, and then I come in and like something you say just answers what like I was praying to God about. And so that's just like super cool to see that, even if we aren't talking explicitly about faith. And then there are other people who, I also counsel, pastors, or those who really, really want a full like faith-based perspective. And so we will go into like how Jesus experienced all emotions, and even anger and incredible sadness, and processing through those things, or processing through how, a lot of what we go through, is in Scripture too, and being able to tie both psychoeducation and Scripture together, and, just helping treat the whole person. And so, having that Christian framework and just letting that like enter in. So it's not super formulaic. I don't think anything I do in therapy is formulaic.
No. As you described, it's embedded in you, and that's when you're in a relationship. You're there.
Yeah.
One of the things I think that is relevant for us when we talk about anxiety, discomfort, etc., is the Christian worldview recognizes things aren't the way they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so it's not a surprise. And that, in terms of our expectations, as if I expect things are going to be just the way I want them to be, I will be continually disappointed.
Yeah.
It's not available.
We live in a broken, fallen world.
Yes, we do, with broken, fallen bodies. And yet, we can be redeemed, and we can have growth, healing, regeneration.
For sure. No.
And so there's the hope.
Yeah.
And seeing all people as being made in the image of God as well. That every single person, no matter what they've done, has dignity too. They have
Even
that
that person that hurt me.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, so being able to, take that step back and try to see that person like Jesus does.
Oh, good.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you being with us today on the
Thank you.
podcast, and we'll have you again in the future at some point. And so we look forward to that day whenever it comes. And thanks for sharing with us today.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Embracing New Life is a production of New Life Resources, a Christian counseling clinic in southeast Wisconsin, whose aim and goal since 1976 has been to provide high-quality professional counseling, psychological, and consulting services from within a Christian framework.